Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Sid Alpha and welcome to Line of Sight, the not-so-exclusive, exclusively Bacon Weekly News Roundup. I say not-so-exclusive because for those of you that haven't been paying attention, there's a new series to watch here at Exclusively Bacon titled EG Recap, a new series that recaps all the news articles from the Exclusively Games website. So if you're interested in the topics but prefer to listen as opposed to read, I would highly recommend checking it out, and don't worry, I don't think we'll end up with any overlapping stories very often. While I do read the Exclusively Games website, the topics covered in Line of Sight tend to be a bit different, which is a good thing. More news, more content, and more information is never a bad thing. However, if you do enjoy reading quality news, then visit the website at exclusivelygames.com. I'll put a link in the description below so it's easy to find. That said, there's been a ton of news this week, and yours truly found himself at the middle of some of it yet again. So let's go ahead and get started with what's on the list for this week. Xbox users ran into problems with backwards compatible versions of Doom due to a Bethesda change. Mechwarrior 5 Epic exclusive announced due to web developer mistake. The developers of Bloodstained had to defeat their game's bosses using only a dagger. And Tetris Effect goes Epic exclusive but still requires Steam VR to play. And now that we're all queued up, let's get started. Now, first-person shooters have become a staple of the video game industry and are well known on every gaming platform in existence and have been popular for over 20 years. And while Wolfenstein 3D is widely credited as being the first game in what we now call the first-person shooter genre, Doom was the game that made it popular and remains popular to this day. However, owners of the digital versions of the original Doom and Doom 2 released on the Xbox 360 and backwards compatible Xbox One versions, along with a PlayStation 3 version, ran into an issue recently where they found themselves unable to re-download their games. This was due to Bethesda re-releasing the classic game with some new features added and some features being removed. This resulted in the games being an entirely new SKU, and those that had already owned the games were not being properly redirected to the new SKUs due to a quote error in functionality. In an email to IGN, a Bethesda representative stated, "Players who own and previously installed the Xbox 360 XBLA backward compatible version of the games on Xbox One will still find those games in their game library and will be able to reinstall that version of the game. There was an error with this functionality today, but we expect to have it remedied very quickly." Per Ars Technica, the new versions of Doom and Doom 2 have added native split-screen play for up to 4 players. However, the Doom 2 expansion pack, No Rest for the Living, has been removed. And because Bethesda has become synonymous with never getting anything right, it has also been reported that the games that were recently released for the Nintendo Switch requires an initial login with a Bethesda store account. And while it is possible for the games to be played completely offline after that initial login, it does still require a valid Bethesda account for that initial login. As one might imagine, the internet never passes up its chance to turn something ridiculous into a meme, and the memes have flowed strong. I myself have been sent several on Twitter, along with the Mario meme, Princess Peach, and Legend of Zelda, to name but a few. And because the ridiculousness doesn't end there, and Bethesda can't ever seem to get anything right, many people have reported their games displaying the Unity trial version watermark in the low right corners of their screens while playing the game. Whether this was yet another Bethesda bug, or if someone screwed up and didn't properly license Unity, we may never know. All we can do is hope that one of these days Bethesda will get something right on the first try, because this past week has not been good to the game's publishers in terms of reputation and a perception of competence. Next up, we have a story that involves little old me yet again, and the one singular game that I've been greatly anticipating for over a year, in which myself and many others have now been forced to require a refund. I'm speaking, of course, about Mechwarrior 5 and the events that surrounded the news that the game was going to be an Epic Store exclusive. Now, Epic Store exclusives are certainly nothing new in recent days. It would seem that any game that looks to be of a sufficient quality, Epic Games will pay truckloads of money to developers and publishers in order to keep the game out of the hands of Steam and GOG. And amongst them is now Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries. Now, how all of this came about was due to a sudden alteration of the Mechwarrior 5 FAQ, which Russ Bullock, the president of Piranha Games, attempted to assure everyone that the change was merely due to the upcoming new website for the game, which, while true, was only a half-truth at best and was, as we later found out, a deliberate lie of omission. In not one but two Discord AMAs last week, Russ Bullock discussed how Mechwarrior 5 going Epic exclusive was a good thing for not only the game but for the franchise, while at the same time telling everyone that the game was being pushed back from its September release date to December, stating the game currently was still pre-alpha, and also that the beta for the game was being pushed back from August to November. Along with that, Russ Bullock commented that Piranha Games had known that they would be an Epic Games Store exclusive all the way back in April of this year, and had known during the final days of the game's limited run pre-order, and had also made an active decision to not inform his customers about this change. On Twitter, Russ Bullock also responded to a questioner when asked when he would have told people about the Epic exclusive, to which he responded Gamescom as the intended announcement time. This decision to wait until Gamescom would have also coincided with the release of the closed beta in what would appear to be a purely financial decision calculated to prevent as many refunds as possible by putting the beta into the hands of customers in an effort to quell some of the inevitable outrage. As I myself was extremely displeased about not merely the decision to make Mechwarrior 5 an Epic Games Store exclusive, but the deliberately withheld information and the lies of omission made by Russ Bullock, Piranha Games was officially inducted into the Dirty Devs Halls of Shame on Friday, July 26th. Russ Bullock has, before the video was even recorded, blocked both myself and anyone being critical of his actions on Twitter, going full turtle instead of dealing with the outrage that he himself caused. Per Russ Bullock, approximately 20,000 people pre-ordered the game, and as of Friday morning, 1,200 of those people had gotten refunds, although it was not clear whether that accounted for the true number of refund requests, as Russ Bullock has shown repeated attempts to obfuscate reality behind omitted pertinent facts. In addition, the Rogue Tech crew have confirmed that they all have canceled their pre-orders of the game, and due to this topic reaching the front page of r/PC Gaming, the number of refunds will undoubtedly continue to increase, although, according to Russ Bullock, that doesn't matter. Our next story is a bit of a lighter one, thankfully, involving the game Bloodstained. Bloodstained is designed to be the spiritual successor to the 1997 PlayStation game that consumed far more hours of my teenage life than I would ever care to openly admit, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Because of that comparison, it is a game that I myself have been reluctant to play for fear that I will start playing it only to look up after what would seem to be a couple of hours to realize an entire night had passed me by. However, the game does have an interesting approach to boss creation that I think can be very respectable in nature, with the added benefit of it requiring the developers to playtest their own boss fights for additional QA. In an interview with Gamasutra, Koji Igarashi was asked the question, "What were the design guidelines you made sure to follow for Bloodstained?" To which he responded with, "I wouldn't call it a design guideline, but Bloodstained does follow a strict rule that I always make the team adhere to. That is, the developer who created the boss must beat their own boss without taking a hit and only using a dagger." We almost didn't make it. "We make sure that it's possible to beat a boss without taking a hit regardless of the difficulty, and by doing so, we reduce the number of unfair enemy attacks. Removing the unfairness allows players to think about what they could have done to avoid a game over. It makes them want to challenge the boss again using a different method. It's a golden rule we follow in our games. Honestly, don't ask us to complete this challenge more than once, though. So the next time you're playing Bloodstained and you get frustrated over not being able to beat a boss, remember that the person who made that boss beat it with nothing more than a knife without taking a single hit. Yeah, get good, I suppose." Next up, we have Tetris Effect going Epic exclusive and still requiring Steam for its VR component. A Tetris Effect is the most recent release of one of, if not the, singularly most popular video game ever to grace a screen. Simple in concept, yet immensely enjoyable, Tetris has been a popular staple within the video game industry since it was first released all the way back in 1984. Originally developed by Alexei Pajitnov, an AI researcher with the Soviet Academy of Sciences in Moscow, Tetris has been released on nearly every gaming platform in existence for over 35 years. The most recent incarnation of Tetris, Tetris Effect, has become an Epic Games Store exclusive. However, not all of the game is quite so exclusive as all that. The game does include VR capability, however, in the case of the HTC Vive, it requires Steam VR in order to function. In a story published by DSOgaming.com, they discussed how the game required the Steam component for VR. In an update, a representative from Epic Games reached out to them to clarify. I came across your article on Tetris Effect VR and I wanted to share the correct, relevant information with you so that your readers are correctly informed. Tetris Effect itself does not require Steam to run. However, Tetris Effect VR does require Steam VR both on HTC Vive and Oculus. You can find full details on the Tetris Effect's Epic Games Store FAQ. And in addition to that, it was further confirmed by Enhance, the publishers of Tetris Effect, on Twitter, in which they said, just to clarify regarding Tetris Effect PC and VR SDKs. To play in optional VR, you can launch via Steam VR, not Steam, for Vive and some other HMDs that work with OpenVR API, or Oculus VR for those HMD. The Tetris Effect is VR optional. You can play in 2D with no resolution or frame rate limit. And as Steam VR is required for the HTC Vive, at least on the Epic Games Store exclusive, one could imagine that Steam will probably be none too pleased with this development. I know I, for one, would probably be looking to nuke from orbit an Epic Games Store exclusive making use of my storefront in any way. But that's all the time we have on this week's Line of Sight. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, let me know down in the comments below, and help us out by dropping a like and sharing the video on social media if you think we earned it. If you want to hear more of me and my opinions on topics like these, particularly the Mechwarrior 5 situation, you can do so by visiting my channel over at youtube.com/SidAlpha. Link is in the description below. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am Sid Alpha, and I'll see you next time.